Hey YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Andy here. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Dell G7 7790. So this is a 17-inch gaming laptop that came out in late 2019. I recently picked this up from Best Buy as an open box item. The one I purchased was $740. I noticed there was another one that was like for $610 at another location. So it seems like these might be out there. You also might see one of these on the used market and wonder if it's worth buying. So that's why I'm making a video about a laptop that's a couple years old with an older generation CPU and GPU. But like I said, I got a good deal on it. My model has the i7 9750H, so 6 cores, 12 threads. It came with 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD, 1 terabyte hard drive, and an RTX 2060 GPU. So pretty decent specs, especially for $740. The 17-inch screen on mine is unfortunately just 60 Hz, not the 144 Hz model, and that is still a VA panel. So those are the basics. Let's go ahead and get started taking a deeper look. Let's start with build quality. The 7790 has a silky smooth all-metal exterior that is very pleasant to touch. Unfortunately, the black palm rest on mine does pick up fingerprints quite quickly, but that smooth metal finish does make them pretty easy to wipe away, which is good since you'll be doing it often. Sandwiched between the metal plates on the base of the laptop is a set of glossy black plastic fins that to me look a bit cheap on a laptop that originally sold for $1,500. The overall rigidity of the chassis is good, but it's not great like a ThinkPad or other, enterprise grade laptop. The screen on the 7790 is not bad, but it's a bit disappointing. As I mentioned, I have the 60 Hz model rather than the 144 Hz model. The higher refresh rate would be nice for sure, but I'm used to 60 Hz, so I don't mind it too much. I know that VA panels are usually the first to hit high refresh rates at a given size, but I do find it slightly annoying that they stuck with the VA panel on the 60 Hz display. It's not a bad looking screen at all, but the improved viewing angles of an IPS display would be nice. My desk is near a couple of windows, so on sunny afternoons I do find myself wishing the screen had one more notch of brightness. Fortunately, it is a matte screen, so it ends up being just good enough to not really be noticeable. Even at 17 inches, I think 1080p is probably the right resolution. It looks perfectly sharp, and I know I'd have to use scaling at any higher resolution, which would mitigate potential gains to screen real estate. The front-firing speakers on the 7790 get impressively loud, but they only sound okay to me. Aside from the typically lacking laptop lows, you get a pretty solid representation across the sound spectrum, but it all comes out sounding a bit like an MP3 that's been compressed too much, just lacking a bit of detail. Overall, they'll leave you wanting if you're any sort of an audiophile, but if you aren't too picky about audio, they're a pretty synergistic combination of mediocre and loud that actually makes them pretty decent all around. The keyboard is good if you like Dell keyboards. The keyboard reminds me a lot of an older XPS 13 keyboard that I have access to. I prefer slightly larger keys, but everything else is good. It does kind of seem like a waste to me that they didn't fully utilize the extra space that the 17-inch chassis provides. It looks pretty obvious that they just dropped in the keyboard from the 15-inch model. That makes sense, but this could have really been an awesome keyboard if they'd used that whole space. Or maybe stick the speakers right there for, a little bit of extra volume. The keyboard does offer 4 zones of RGB backlighting with a few different options for patterns if you're into that sort of thing. Anyway, let's move on to the trackpad, which I haven't used that much. This is a 17-inch gaming laptop after all. It's not glass, but it has a very reliable tracking and a nice short click. There is a slightly rough texture on it. It's not totally smooth, but I find this to be an example of the time when that texture actually works pretty well because I haven't had any problems with my finger getting stuck on the trackpad. This is a pretty good trackpad from when I've used it thus far. Alright, I will use this as an opportunity to mention that I'm not forgetting to talk about battery life. I just haven't really used this enough to give you a really reliable breakdown of it. I'm guesstimating from the times I have used it on battery that it's about 4 to 5 hours, which isn't bad, but there may be a reason for that I'll get to. Well, actually, we'll get to that pretty soon. Because we're going to talk about performance now. The 4th and 5th gen mobile Ryzens have definitely made a big splash since this laptop came out in late 2019. But in practical terms, the 9750H CPU in this laptop, when paired with the RTX 2060, is still totally capable of everything that I throw at it, and perfectly fine for 60 FPS gaming. Editing videos like this one is a breeze in Premiere, and gaming performs noticeably better than the desktop 1660 Super I was using before I got this system. As you can see from this gaming footage that I recorded using the NVIDIA built-in recording, which does affect the frame rates a little bit. It's a little smoother if you look at the actual FPS numbers, especially in the driving games, which show them. Gaming is a really great performance on this. I've even used this on my 1440p monitor and my 4K TV, and have had a really good experience in some of the games that I've tried. Obviously, a lot of games you're not going to be able to play at those resolutions, like Cyberpunk. That'll only be playable really at 1080p unless you want to turn things down majorly. But yeah, everything is performing as it should. One thing that I did notice when I was recording this footage, and it only happened to me once, but the first time I was recording Forza, just regular Forza, not Forza Horizon, it dropped down to 30 FPS at some point. So it seems like the recording, I'd only been recording for about 15 minutes, I think, though I'd been doing several other games before that, so heat may have been building up. But it definitely seems like some sort of throttling happened. But I haven't had the issue since then, including after that, and a reboot later, I'll add, recording Cyberpunk 2077 and an even longer session, I didn't have any issues. So that may have just been like some one-off weirdness with drivers or whatever. One other possibly major note on performance that I alluded to when I was talking about battery life, for that 5 seconds, is that it does not perform the way that you necessarily would expect it to. Despite fully updating everything, and regardless of tweaking whatever settings I could find, performance has been severely limited when on battery using the 7790. For the most part, the CPU never goes above 2.2 GHz, usually staying below 2 GHz. GPU performance also appears to be affected, as gaming is a pretty terrible performance on battery life. From what I've read, there may be possible fixes with registry tweaks, but the article I looked at that seemed the most promising was extremely long, and it wasn't just like go add one registry key, which you always kind of want to look into anyway when you're just finding a guide on the internet. So this is a pretty annoying issue, probably for a lot of people. For me, the way I'm going to use this laptop, it is a 17-inch gaming laptop again. This probably isn't going to really affect me too badly, and in fact, the extended battery life when I'm just for some reason, using it on battery, usually just like watching YouTube probably, might be nice. But if you did plan to use this laptop for high-performance tasks on the go, it's going to be slow. It's slower than an Ultrabook with a 4-core, U-series processor. It's surprisingly slow on battery. So that's definitely something that you should know about. Not really a huge deal in the way I'm going to be using this, but definitely potential to be a huge deal if your use case is different. All right, well, this seems like a good spot to talk about heat and fan noise. So when you're in an extended gaming session, the keyboard deck can get very warm in some spots. It gets a lot warmer on the right, which is good if you're using WASD because that side stays noticeably cooler. Neither side gets so hot that I would say it's uncomfortably hot, but that right side does get pretty toasty. The fans do regularly come on for any sort of moderately demanding tasks, and they're fairly loud. Fortunately, they do have a really steady and almost pleasing whooshing sound that makes it easy to get used to. It's almost like a white noise machine, they're very consistent in their whoosh. More good news about this is that the speakers can easily overpower the fans in most games, only running them at 50%, so not running into any cranking the volume up distortion. So the fan noise really isn't too big of an issue, even though there are definitely laptops that are better, because the fans spin up quite a bit. So aside from the fact that they do spin up quite a bit, I don't think there's really too much to complain about with the fans on this laptop. Powering that cooling is a dual fan system. If we take a look around the rest of the internals of the laptop, we'll see a decent amount of upgradeability, what you'd really expect from a laptop this size. There are 2 RAM slots available, and you get access to both an M.2 SSD and a SATA drive bay. I have upgraded the RAM on mine already from 16 gigs to 24 gigs, just due to a stick I have laying around. I want to go to 32 gigs later so I can get them back in dual channel, but it's fine for now. And then I did also upgrade the SSDs. So you really have the option through upgrades to buy a lower spec one of these and upgrade it into a real sort of media powerhouse in terms of storage and RAM. And finally, I will talk about I/O. For large gaming laptops, I always love rear I/O, and Dell does not disappoint me here, providing a nice selection of essential ports on the rear to allow for a very clean desk look. USB-C and an audio jack would be nice back there, but I'm really just nitpicking here. Dell delivers pretty much all of the ports you could possibly need and puts them in sensible locations, and they even throw in an SD card reader, which I appreciate greatly. So an A+ on the I/O here for Dell. Alright, so after all of that, I guess it's time for a final conclusion on the Dell G7 7790 and whether you should consider buying it. And like a lot of laptops, this really comes down to price and needs, especially. Needs is a big one because there are some people who, regardless of price, this probably won't be a good laptop for, due to that issue where it doesn't perform on the battery. If performance on battery is a big deal for you, I would not recommend buying this laptop regardless of price. However, if you only are really going to be pushing this laptop when you have it plugged into power, which I think is probably a lot of you, since like I've been mentioning throughout the video, this is a 17-inch gaming laptop. It's hefty. I think it's like 8 pounds. So it's not something that you want to really have on your lap or that you're going to be carrying around all that much. Then it's a competent laptop for a 17-inch gaming laptop, if you're looking for that, which is, I think, actually pretty interesting because what's really the difference in portability between a 6-pound 15-inch laptop and an 8-pound 17-inch laptop? So just give me that extra screen real estate and give me the option of using the laptop without an external monitor, just a screen that's big enough to be usable for everything, and that's pretty compelling. So that's actually why I bought this, is that I've been thinking about a 17-inch gaming laptop for a while, and that's why I pulled the trigger at $700. So if you've been thinking similarly, and you see one of these pop up, open box in really good shape for $700, why not pull the trigger? It's definitely worth a shot at that price. If it's, going for more like $1,200, which is what I saw on eBay, yeah, I'm not so sure I would pay that price for this. If the screen were a little nicer, if it had the 144 hertz panel, then maybe it would be worth, over $1,000 still. And I guess due to the gaming, part shortage, maybe it's sort of worth that much period now. But I probably wouldn't want to pay more than, $800 or $900 for this, due to the screen, due to the, good but not great build quality, just due to all those little nits, the speakers that don't really satisfy me, all those things that add up to this not being a great machine. But it is a perfectly competent gaming laptop with a 17-inch screen, which if you can find it for a good price, hey, take a shot on it. Alright, well, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will do my best to get you an answer. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.